are continuing our series in autism. And our first episode was Autism 101.
Which was a huge outpouring from you guys. We had so many messages from people, comments. Just the amount of people that have listened to the episode has gone above and beyond what we thought it was going to be. So thank you for listening. If you got something out of it, awesome. If it made you frustrated, talk to us. Let us know what frustrated you about it. Or if you're like, okay, those people are weird, keep listening because we got more things to say that are going to make us think we're weird. But we're just so honored that you guys decided to tune in today as we continue our series on autism.
Yes, and if you don't know, we are also on YouTube. So
yes,
we're on all of the regular podcast platforms that you probably listen to us, but you might already be watching us on YouTube. But if you're not, go check us out. We would love if you could subscribe to our page.
Exactly. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you guys know what's going on. Can't believe I can say that. It's amazing. So with that, let's get into this episode. We are going to be talking about parenting and siblings and what does that look like for our household and how things we are. And I want to disclaimer, every family is different and every autistic child is different. And the way we do it might not work for other people. So this isn't like what we do works for everybody. We just want to let you know what we walk through it and as what we've encountered to help encourage you guys. And this can go for more than just autistic families too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I hope you guys enjoy this week's episode.
Yeah. So kind of kicking that off, we just wanted to talk through some like encouraging reminders of as you're parenting a child with autism, whether that's a boy or girl, whatever it might be, whatever level they're on. One thing to always remember is that you as the parent, it's not your fault that your child has autism or it's not your fault that things are hard. And I think that's one thing that it's easy to say, but it can be very challenging to believe that when you're in the middle of a parenting journey with an autistic child. It can be very discouraging.
No, I agree.
And you can have moments where you do think everything is your fault.
Yeah, and going back to what we talked about last week and things we don't like to hear, one of those things is when people say, oh, it's your fault for getting your child vaccinated, or it's your fault that your child, Naomi didn't get a certain vitamin, or your wife didn't get the proper nutrients they needed and it caused it. It's not your fault. Just make that very clear about autism. It's very not fully understood of what causes autism. There's not a ton out there yet to say what exactly autism comes from. So in retrospect, it's not your fault for what has taken place. And it's going to happen. You're going to feel that. But don't let that get to you because it's definitely not your fault. And me and Naomi have felt that so many times.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes on a daily where we feel like, oh, this is just my fault because we did this or we did that. And so just want to encourage you. It's not your fault.
Definitely. And then another element we wanted to bring up is it's a good reminder to take time for yourself. What would you say to that, Aaron? Taking time for yourself as not only a parent, but a parent of a special needs child. What does that look like for you?
For me, what I like to do is just sit and not think, and typically what a guy does. But it's me spending time listening to podcasts, me not worrying about getting the house clean or making sure everything is going smoothly. Like when the kids go down, it's me and Naomi might be doing her own thing, but I might just sit there and not focus on anything and just look at my phone, or I might watch a show that I'm not even watching or a YouTube video, and I'm just taking time for myself. Or it's when I'm in the car taking Timmy to therapy on the way back, I'll get a coffee or I'll take my time with things. So that's what I do, but what is something that you do?
No, I would say similar things. Like I like to go on a walk by myself, just kind
go to Target.
I love to go to Target or Hobby Lobby, anywhere and that's always important too as a parent, right? Like as a parent, you want to make sure you're always giving time for yourself to kind of recharge. And I'm more of an introvert, so I do like to be alone to kind of regain my energy, especially after like a weekend with the kids. That can be a lot.
We send Naomi off to a coffee shop to go read her books.
Yeah, it's super nice. And that's important. It doesn't have to be hours, right? Like it can just be a little bit of time that you can carve out of your day to go have that time that you need to make you a better parent, right? Because the whole purpose is that time that you spend away from your children does make you a better parent, because you're not unleashing like anger and stress on your children, which I have done before.
Exactly. And that's why taking time to yourself and stepping back, and me and Naomi have both done it, where one of us is like, I need to be out of the room, or like I need to go do something. I'm on my wits end, and I'm going to do something that I'm going to regret. Not going to hit our kids, not going to do anything like that. Definitely not. But just those moments where you want to say something that's not going to fix the situation, but probably make it worse. With autism, it's just increased. This is definitely for all parents, but with autism, having a child with autism, all of these emotions can be extremely increased, because especially with a child that's nonverbal, that can't communicate properly, it throws a really big wrench into your life, and your anxiety and your anger can be elevated really, really fast over no reason. And so taking time for yourself is important, because what it's going to do is help benefit your child in his development, because he's not going to hear things or witness things that are going to hinder him or her in their development.
Yeah. So I think that's really important for both spouses.
Yes.
Both people, involved in raising the child. It's good for you both to have time away. And our situation is a little bit different, because Aaron's home with the boys, so he does a lot more of the like daily time with Timmy. So sometimes he might need it a little extra if he had a harder day. I usually need it after a weekend, because the kids don't see me as often, so
Naomi
they leech to me on the weekends.
Naomi's work is her
Oh, do not say that. Work is not you time at all.
No, but on that, so we said take time for yourself, but also take time for your marriage.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, especially with how high the divorce rate is within the autism community with families. It's extremely high. It's higher than the average family with kids or without kids. It's even higher. And so taking time to rekindle your marriage with your spouse definitely would help. And we have been on that negative receiving end when we weren't spending that time, and we almost did lose our marriage. We almost did lose our relationship, because we're not blaming it on Timmy. We're not blaming it on marriage, but we fell short of making sure we had time with each other.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important. And so me and Naomi, like today, me and Naomi took the day off for her birthday. It was this last week. And so she got a day off from work, and we just went exploring. And we went and looked at baby stuff. We went to the Pearl here in San Antonio.
Had some
breakfast and some lunch.
Yeah,
and we just had a great time together. And we didn't talk. Well, we did talk about Timmy, just about insurance stuff, but we spent the time just relaxing and not having to think about anything else, but just being with each other. So
yeah, and that's super important.
Not just taking care of yourself, but also taking care of your marriage is extremely important, because the divorce rate is so high.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say too, with your marriage and with just yourself, you can easily fall into like a caretaker role for your child, and that can turn into who you are. So remember that that's not what defines you.
You need friends.
Yeah. Being a caretaker for your special needs child is not who you are. That is what you do, and that's how you love your child, but that's not who you are to be. So it's important to take time.
Because I've seen it so many times where couples just completely fall apart because of this. I see it on the groups that I'm a part of on Facebook, where it's dad's just saying, we've given up on each other. We're getting divorced. Just there's no more spark anymore. It's like, you can still have the spark in your marriage and have an autistic child. It is possible. It is capable. Not saying it works for every marriage. Again, disclaimer on that. Yes, sometimes marriages can't be fixed, and that happens. But overall, working on your marriage is very important, and making sure your spouse is doing fine.
Definitely.
But
moving on.
All
right. The next point we wanted to bring up for parenting an autistic child is it's okay to cry.
Oh, yeah.
You should cry a lot, probably.
We both cry.
We cry all the time. And sometimes it's happy cries. Sometimes it's sad cries.
Sometimes it's angry cries.
Not as often as before, when he was a little bit younger and things were we were trying to figure it all out, so we cried a lot more. But it's okay. Like, things suck. And, like, you are allowed to cry and be sad about that.
Yeah.
And to kind of add to that, it's okay to also grieve what you don't have.
Yes.
Which I think is super, super, super important. And I feel like every special needs parent needs to know that that's okay. For a long time, I actually struggled with like feeling like, oh, I can't be sad that, you know, I can't take my family to the movies. We literally cannot go to a movie theater.
We tried.
We tried.
It was a disaster.
We can't go to the movie theater together. We can't, you know, there's a lot of things we can't do like a normal family. And
It's not that we don't want to do them. We can't.
Yeah. And to the point where it's not worth it, right? Like if we went to the movies, which we have done, one of us had to take turns running around with Timmy outside the movie theater, which he's not that kind of kid that could sit there and be still. But it's okay to grieve the things that you wish that you had. It's okay to be sad that things don't look the way that you want, and don't feel bad about that.
No, don't feel bad about it. Because if you let yourself cry, I'll say this: if you let yourself cry in these situations, your anxiety and your doubt will start decreasing, and you'll be able to sleep at night. You'll be able to get through things easier when you allow yourself to emotionally cry and to let those emotions flow out, because crying is a good thing. It's a good therapeutic way of releasing stress and anxiety and all these different things. And so crying is very important, and it's key. Again, this goes to all parenting. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have those moments. You can cry
even if you don't have a special needs child.
You can cry. Don't worry.
Hard.
Parenting is very difficult. Just autism, you're adding 1,000-pound weight onto it.
Yeah.
So. And
I would say too, I've always thought we were really blessed because we have 2 children and one doesn't have special needs. I, for a long time, I love, and I still do it, I love taking just Marcus out somewhere, because for just that little bit, I feel very normal, and I feel like a normal mom, and I have a normal child, and we do normal fun things together. And I cherish that with him because it's very important that I have that with him, because he is my other son, right? Like, I need to have that anyway. But it also is very valuable because the way that I love my 2 boys is very, very, very different. And the way I spend time with them is very different. And I'm very blessed that I have the opportunity to do that with both. But there are a lot of autistic parents that don't have that just have their one special needs child. And that is hard because you don't have that kind of give and take with the other neurotypical child.
Exactly.
So it's good. It's good to grieve that stuff and don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, don't feel bad.
It's good to do.
But yeah, there's been many times where I just need to cry. And men, it's okay to cry. Like, it's easy. I think it's easier for moms to cry over these things, and it's sometimes harder for dads. Cry. Do it. It's okay as a man to cry. I'm telling you right now.
And to be mad.
And to be mad.
I would say that's fair too.
It is really tough because there's been moments where I get really mad, where it's like, I'm really glad I have Marcus and I can teach Marcus everything that I've learned from my dad. And it pisses me off. I'm going to use that word. It pisses me off that I don't get to teach Timmy some of the things that I wanted to teach him. And I wanted to teach Timmy to sing and teach Timmy how to play an instrument and stuff like that. Maybe he will be able to do these things. Maybe he will, but like, I have those moments and I've cried over it and I've been angry over it. So it's okay to show your emotions. Be careful of showing your emotions around your kids. It's okay for your kids, especially if you have 2, like a neurotypical and an autistic child, for your neurotypical son or daughter to see you sad, because it'll show them like, hey, this is hard, what your parent's going through, and that's good and that's okay, especially if you explain why you're feeling the way you are. So dads, please cry. Like, don't hold it in. Don't try and be a macho man about it. You can't go the whole distance and acting like that. You will fall short and you will break and give up, and that's not okay. Yeah.
It's good. Another point for parents is use your resources and ask questions.
This is all Naomi. What? Naomi, you're good at this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, use the professional's advice, right? So if you get your kid diagnosed, if you're thinking about getting your kid diagnosed, maybe you're doing some early developmental therapy, or, some stuff with, like, I know even public school offers like an early development kind of program, like introductory stuff. Whoever you're talking to, ask questions. We the most we know about autism today is from asking questions and from doing our own research on the side. But, when you have a hard day, especially, again, this is all about parenting, right? So if you have a hard day at home, your kid is doing something, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to react. You don't know how to change their behavior. You're literally stuck. Ask somebody, right?
Yeah.
So that's what your resources are there for. If you're plugged in and getting some sort of, therapy or schooling for your child, use those people. They are professionals in that field. They went to school for it. They are equipped to give you those tips, and it's huge.
Exactly. And it's good to ask questions, especially with therapists. They are seeing so much. And like, I ask questions to Timmy's therapist, how in this situation, what do I do? And they address those issues, and they talk you through it and say, if you see this, this is what we want to see you do. And it'll help Timmy win this. It's like, oh, I didn't even realize if I would have done this, it would have alleviated some of the stress that involved. So, and then also don't be afraid to reach out to get resources, especially when it comes to like grants for your child and assistance for your child. And we're applying for grants right now, and we hope that we get approved for them, because there's only so much we financially can do on our own. And there are a lot of groups and a lot of companies and nonprofit organizations that want to help families. It's just a matter of people not feeling like, oh, well, I shouldn't do it because someone else might need it. It's like, no, if you need it, use it.
Yeah.
Like, go after it. And me and Naomi talked about it. It's like, do we really want a grant? No, we really do need the help with some of this stuff. And it's amazing that there is organizations and companies out there that want to assist and help families. And it's not a charity. Don't treat it like a charity. Don't be like, oh, I just don't want to take it because I don't want to be a charity case. Don't take it because they want to help you.
Yeah.
And they want to help your child succeed too. And if you are able to not feel like it turns into a financial burden, it'll alleviate some of that more stress that you're having. So you might cry less. You might be able to take care of yourself better. And those things will come out of that.
Yeah, that's good.
So.
And I would say too, for at least the therapy program our son is in, we do parent training. And I say we, it's mostly Aaron. I try to go when I can, once a month. But the teachers will actually meet with Aaron and I to go over things that they're doing at the school. And it's all about creating consistency in the home. And so that's really nice. But what's really cool is I used our resources with the therapy clinic because I've actually been having a hard time with Timmy at home. He bosses me around. I love him, but he bosses me around and doesn't do that to Aaron. So I brought that up to the teachers, and I was like, hey, I'm having this problem at home. Help, because this sucks. So they're actually putting a plan in place to give me tips on that.
And we also brought up that Naomi was pregnant. We're like, hey, as we're getting closer, these are the things Naomi's struggling with trying to control Timmy. He's a 55-pound kid.
Actually, he stood on the scale just today, and he's only like 49 pounds.
Oh, he's only 49? He's like, he floats around 50. But even for Naomi, as she gets farther along in the pregnancy, we've brought that up, and they're like, oh yeah, let's start creating a game plan to help Timmy. And we'll start implementing that so that you don't, like, Naomi's able to help Timmy and not hurt herself or the baby.
Another thing I would say about the resources is you don't have to like the place your kid is at. We have had Tim in multiple places. Usually the only times we've changed is because of his age and because of moving. So there's like certain milestones where the kids have to move up to the next phase. So he's been in, I want to say like 4 different schools, whether that's school or therapy, for 4 different places. And one of those 4 I did not like. I had a really, really hard time with the place he was at. So you kind of have to give yourself a grace period where your child has to adjust. You obviously have to get to know the new place that your kid is going. So don't quit something a month in, because that's not a true, reflection of the program. But if you've been in a program for a good 6 months with your child and it's just not a good fit, you can look somewhere else. Like, don't feel bad about that. You want to find a place that's good for your child that works. So don't feel like if your current program is like not the thing, you don't have to stay there. You can look somewhere else, which there's waiting lists other places, but it might be worth it. So use your resources and ask questions.
Exactly. There's a lot out there, and it can be confusing. So if you have questions, ask us. And again, this might not be the podcast that everybody wants to hear. This is just more resources. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I just want to know more about autism, we're trying to give you all that's out there so that you can help families around us. So if you're like, oh, this really doesn't pertain to me. I maybe it doesn't, but maybe you have a family member, or maybe you know somebody that has an autistic child. The more you can understand, you can help out those families.
Yeah, definitely.
By coming alongside them, either in prayer or just being like, hey, I'll look some stuff up for you. Be careful of sending resources to the family. Be like, hey, have you heard of this? Don't be like, hey, I've heard of this, try this. Just simply be like, hey, have you thought of this idea? Or have you thought this program? I saw this program. Is it something you've heard of? Don't tell the family, because I guarantee it most of the time they've heard it and they've tried it and they're not eligible, or they can't get it, or something's up that they can't. So,
and I would say too, like, there's a lot of controversy about Autism Speaks. We personally really love it. If you go to their website, they have a lot of really, really good documentation and like information on autism and what that means and the different levels and like what to do. So even as a friend of someone who has a kid with autism, I think that is a great place to go to kind of just learn.
It's a good starting point.
The basics. Yeah. Okay, are you ready for another tip, Aaron?
Sure.
All right, this is actually our last tip about parents, and then we're going to move to siblings. So parents, you are your child's biggest advocate.
You are their biggest advocate.
And their voice sometimes.
And you are their voice. And
most of the time.
Don't be afraid to stand up for your kid. Don't be afraid. And this goes for all forms of parenting. But when it comes to an autistic kid, you are their biggest advocate. And they're looking to you. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Have confidence, because when you speak up, people will notice and people will want to help. And
two, it can be a lot of work, right? Like advocating for your child. When we moved from Washington to Texas, we had a lot to learn about Texas and how that works down here for autistic kids.
Definitely do.
Which actually, another resource, if you're in Texas, the Autism Lifeline links in Texas is amazing. They're like a central hub that can give you a bunch of resources in the area that you're in Texas. But moving here was a really big learning curve because it's very different than Washington. And so we spent lots of time figuring out where to go, figuring out how insurance worked here, and just like did all of that. And it can be exhausting, very, very tiring. It's almost like a full-time job sometimes when you're trying to figure out where to put your kid. But it's important. And even though it's exhausting, when you finally get your child enrolled in the program that they should be in and they're getting their services, it feels like it's worth it. So that being said, advocating for that is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think also be careful of how fierce you kind of come across, because you can become like a very mommy shark over here. It can become very talons out, claws out, and everything. So just kind of be careful as a parent. But it's your kid. Like you're fighting for him, and we advocate for Timmy all the time as we do this podcast to advocate for him and for kids like him. I just say find also a great community, like advocating. I think that's what. But I have this feeling I want to talk about real quickly. Is just find a group of people that will want to come around you. We have really, really great group of people around us that love on us, but then also show respect to Timmy. And we have a church that has a program in it called their Oasis team. Liz at our church, she's the director of the children's ministry. She does such a great job at reaching out to us, seeing how Timmy's doing. So finding a group of people that will come alongside you and love you is super important as a parent. Yes, you are your child's advocate. Yes, it is your job. You're the one doing all the work. But like they say, it takes a city to raise a kid. A village to raise a kid. It takes a city to raise an autistic kid. But finding a community around you, like we said in the last one, is it's really important to have a good community, and having neighbors around you, having family around you that's advocating as well on your behalf. I know Naomi's mom is a real estate agent, and she's wanting to try and give a percentage of her the money that she makes being a real estate agent towards advocating for autism. And it's just, it brings such joy to my heart that we have people around us that want to do that. And so if you're a parent with an autistic child, find a community, find a niche that's going to come around you. And don't stop until you find that niche.
Yeah.
Don't stop until you find it, because they will come around you, and they will lift you up. And in times that you feel the worst, they will make you feel the best.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to cheer you up when you're having a hard day. Like, our neighbors came into our house the other night for Naomi's birthday, ran in and sang her happy birthday and hung out for a little bit. And it was like kind of exactly what Naomi needed to have on her birthday.
Nice.
Just very something simple. And that helps us as parents of autistic children to just weather this situation that we did not create. We did not do this. It happens. And so having a group around us is good.
I would say too, kind of keeping on that same being an advocate for your child theme, is sometimes the waiting list is what you're doing when you're advocating. So depending on where you live, waiting lists for different therapy clinics or schools can be very, very long. And we've been in that boat where we had to basically, all we could do was wait, and it can be a waiting game. So don't feel like if you're on a waiting list,
keep
that
calling.
You're not advocating. Keep calling them.
Call other places. See if there's openings. Just
Yeah.
keep trying every day. It's exhausting. It sucks sometimes.
And sometimes that's all you can do is basically just wait. So don't feel like that's your fault either, because that's just the fault of the systems around us all.
But yeah, when it comes to siblings though, so we talked about parenting. Siblings are such an important thing also to remember. And your other children can be forgotten really easily. And so I think one of the thing is, I'm going to go to the last one, that it's not your sibling's it's not the sibling's responsibility to take care of his other sibling. They are just siblings. It's your responsibility as the parent. Don't make your other child change a diaper.
Yeah.
Don't make your other child do everything for them. Marcus is really great at that. He wants to help, and like sometimes we're like, hey, we're downstairs. We're like, hey, Timmy got quiet upstairs. Can you just run up there and just see what he's doing? We don't want you to get like stop him from what he's doing. Just let us know, and he helps us in that way. But we don't make Marcus be like, hey, Marcus, go sit next to Timmy and make sure Timmy's doing the right thing, or play this game with Timmy and do this with Timmy. He wants to sometimes, but we don't make him do the job for us.
Right.
And so it's not their job. It's not their responsibility. They're still a kid. They're still a child. So just remember that as you're going through it. Don't put that burden on siblings.
Yeah, that's good. Because it can be kind of easy to do that too, because you can kind of lean on the other ones.
Oh yeah, and especially as they get older, it's just easier to be like, hey, we're gonna go out for a night. We're gonna have you watch your brother. Just make sure he doesn't do it. Like, maybe I actually probably will use Marcus someday for that. So I'm speaking hypocrisy. But don't make your child do things because you don't want to do them or something like that.
Yeah, that's good. Also, just knowing that things won't be fair is big. That's a big one for me. But parenting, I mean, in general, parenting your children, it's not going to be fair in general, right? Like, that's just a thing.
Can't always make it fair.
It can't always be fair. But it's definitely not fair if you have an autistic child and their siblings that are not autistic.
Yeah, Marcus cleans up all the toys almost every day. Naomi does a majority of it, but a lot of the time Marcus cleans up all the mess that Timmy makes. Sometimes he does it stubbornly. Sometimes he does it with a joyful heart, which is good. And he realizes it's not fair. He didn't make the mess, but he knows it's the least he can do for the family. Because if Timmy wakes up with a mess the next morning, it tends to throw him into a hard time. And then that causes a hard time for Marcus. Because then Marcus is like, I can't do anything because Timmy's screaming. And then it's like, so yeah.
And the way we interact with them is so different. There'll be times where, like, Timmy's having a moment, so we have a bunch of different snacks for Tim, and it's like Timmy gets a snack, and Marcus will be like, "What about me?" And I'm like, "No, we're eating dinner in 10 minutes. You're fine."
Yeah, he's like, but Mark, it's like, I'm like, yeah, sorry, it's not fair. Like, I have to give Timmy this snack because he needs it.
Yeah.
You need food too, but I'm making you dinner, so you can wait.
Yeah.
You're
So
capable of waiting.
a lot of those kind of conversations where things clearly aren't fair in our household, and we're totally fine with that. And I think it's just setting that precedence with your children. They don't know any different. Your children don't know any different besides you. So the way that you set out your parenting plan is on, it's not going to surprise them, right?
Exactly.
So like as long as you're kind of guiding them through that. And we always explain to Marcus too certain things when they're definitely not fair. We like to kind of explain why it is that way. And that's just kind of how our family dynamics work.
Exactly. And then I think the last thing is bringing your child in and teaching them about autism so that they can become advocates as well. Marcus was the other day, was the cutest thing ever. Naomi, you heard it. You can say what.
Yeah, so Marcus will always tell people, he introduces his brother, he'll say, "This is my brother Timmy. He's autistic." And like that's like literally what he'll always say to his friends when they come over.
Yeah.
And usually the kids don't say anything back. They're just like, "Okay, hi," and then they go play. The other day, we had this neighbor kid over, and Marcus does his thing. "This is my brother. He's autistic." And the kid goes, "Oh, okay, cool. What does autistic mean?" And I was like peering over because I wanted to hear what Marcus said. And Marcus goes, "I don't really know, but I think it means that he just doesn't talk yet."
Yeah.
And then the kid goes, "Oh, okay, cool. Does he do sign language?" And Marcus goes, "Yeah, totally." Which Marcus or Timmy doesn't do sign language,
No,
but I just thought that was cute because it's like Marcus kind of understands from what we've told him kind of how Timmy is different.
Yeah, and then we're at the park.
Yeah.
Timmy plays different at the park, and other kids will be like, "What is he doing?" He goes, "Oh, that's my brother. He's just autistic, and he plays different."
Yeah.
And then the kids are like, "Okay," and they just move. He doesn't open the door for letting them make fun of Timmy. He immediately shuts it down, where he doesn't be like, "Oh, I don't know that kid. Oh,
Yeah.
that's not my brother." Like he immediately goes, "Oh, that's my brother Timmy. He's autistic. He plays different." And then they usually, like kids do, they're like, "Oh, okay," and then they walk about. There's no room for them to make fun of, and it's really important to teach your kids what it is of having a sibling with autism, with a learning disability.
I actually got this really cool book. I think it's from the Organization of Autism Research, OAR, if you want to Google it. But they actually make workbooks for siblings to explain autism to that sibling. I gave it to Marcus way too early. Marcus was like 5.
We'll have to find it.
It was
Give it
like
to him again.
too complicated. It would be perfect now. But it was kind of a cool workbook that kind of just explains just kind of different things about your sibling when they interact with you and they have autism. So I thought that was a really cool resource. So if you're looking for something like that, that would be cool.
Yeah.
But teaching the other children obviously about autism is important because they're living in it with you. They just don't have that responsibility over the child,
Exactly.
but they do have that sibling relationship that can be very different too.
And I think also what I try and do with Marcus is I ask Marcus for forgiveness sometimes because I have lashed out in anger, not at him, but I'm frustrated or I'm stressed out about a situation, and he'll come up and be like, "Dad, can I have this?" I'm like, "No," and I like kind of snap real quickly, and then I have to go back and be like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm just stressed out about this situation with Timmy. Please forgive me." And he's super understanding. He's like, "I forgive you, Dad. It's okay. I understand." But then also letting him know that it's not okay for us to snap at him and to be that way. But letting them know that there are times, and especially teaching your kids this, is there'll be moments where you might say something that you don't really mean. It goes for all parenting.
Yeah.
But as an autistic family, there's things going to happen that you don't want to happen or intend to happen. And having grace in everybody's hearts to navigate the situation is very important. So teaching at a young age of grace and humility and forgiveness is really, really important to instill into Marcus. And Marcus is a boy of so much grace and so much love and forgiveness. He is quick to forgiveness. He's very quick to anger too, which we're dealing with. But that's another day of another story. But he does such a great job with Timmy, and we never put the burden on him to take care of his brother. It's on us, and so I encourage you on that.
Yeah, I think that's good.
But Well, we hope you guys were encouraged more with understanding the life of us, our not your normal life of autism, and the everyday we walk through. And if you're a parent with an autistic child, reach out to us. We'd love to talk with you guys, encourage you, and there might be things that you might be able to help us and encourage us as well, because we're all in it together. So
It's true.
I'm Aaron,
And I'm Naomi.
and this has been Not Your Normal Life, guys. We'll see you guys next week.